Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Southerner's Northern Garden. So today I have a few things to get done. Primarily it's the weekend before the fence is installed, so I need to move the sprinkler heads on this side of the fence, and I'll be walking you through that briefly. Just a disclaimer, I am not an irrigation person, but I've been doing this for a couple years, moving stuff around as I've needed to, and it's worked pretty well for me. So I'm doing that. I wanted to show you the oh so easy double pink roses are blooming down here, and this is what the blooms look like. A really gorgeous pink with a yellow center. You can see how much they've grown just since I put them in the ground. It's pretty amazing how quickly these little roses will take hold and start growing really quickly and acclimate to the soil. So it's pretty bright outside. Where I'm doing the sprinklers is still a little shaded, so I wanted to take you over there and get that done while I could this morning before it warms up anymore. I also am going to cap the sprinkler line on the other side of the property where I have these sprinkler heads behind here that I've mentioned on my channel. So that will cut off water to those, and so those will no longer be spraying when I run the irrigation. So let me take you over there and show you what I've done so far. Okay, so here's the sprinkler line as it ran down to the end of the property where I capped a sprinkler head behind the shed at the corner down there. So what I did was I just capped off the sprinkler line. There's a swing pipe to the sprinkler that was right here, and I'm going to run it up to right there. So there's not a whole lot to moving sprinkler heads. You can get the materials at your big box store, and it only requires typically a connector and a set of swing pipe material, which I'll show you in a second. But I'm going to move this in a minute, but I want to take you up here and show you the other one that I'm moving. So in my last video, you know, I discussed moving this sprinkler head that was kind of over here when I was sitting next to the vegetable garden, and moving it to right here in the corner, and this will kind of be the corner of the bed right here, and it'll come down this way towards the end of the property, and so this will be a nice corner here. The fence will be right here. I may have the sprinkler people come and move this line over next year. I'm also considering trenching in electric to the shed, so that will be an opportunity to do both of those at the same time. My main concern is, you can see where the sprinkler pipe runs down this way. That is almost perfectly parallel to where I want the fence line to be. It is a little more this way, so I'm hoping they'll be able to dig all the way down and not hit that. If they do happen to hit it, it's just going to be something that'll have to be dealt with in the spring, and I'll have to clean up in the spring. So you can see right here as well, I also have an invisible fence, which we've had since we moved into the property and I had installed. There's a little electrical line there, and basically you just dig around the sprinkler to get the sprinkler free. It's connected to the swing pipe, which feeds in to this area right here on the sprinkler system. So I'm actually going to have to cut this swing pipe right here to get it under that electrical fence. I don't want to damage that anymore. So if you live in the Midwest, you know I like to go to Menards for all of my irrigation supplies just because it's cheap and they have a better selection than Lowe's or Home Depot around here. So this is swing pipe. It looks very similar to distribution tubing for drip, but it's made of a little different material and it's thicker. You can see here, so it's not as easy to bend, and that's kind of an issue when you're installing sprinkler heads. You have to be a little more direct with how you're digging the line. You can't bend it as easily. And then there's also swing pipe connectors, which look very similar to the distribution type connectors, but they're a little smaller since the pipe itself is thicker. So if I need to extend a pipe, what I typically do is grab one of these connectors, cut the pipe wherever I need, which is what I'll be doing right here with this one, and just pull out as much pipe as I need. I actually cut off the sprinkler head right here, and so you'll just cut off the rest of this swing pipe at the bottom of this connector and clean up the connector so you can attach new pipe to it and extend it and cut it to however length you need. So I'm going to go up here and work on this one. I'm going to put the camera on a tripod so you can just see the basics of kind of what this is. Most irrigation is 1-inch PVC pipe. So right here where I cap this, so this is just left open because there's not going to be any water running to it. I didn't want this running to an empty cap down there, so it'd be easier to winterize over winter. So that's all I did there. It should be dry now, so after I get all of this stuff capped, I am going to turn on the sprinklers and see how they work. You can actually see pretty good how good a job that 𝗟𝗏𝗲 landscape fabric does at killing off the grass under it. So it's been here for probably about a month in the heat, and it's doing a pretty good job. I'm going to go ahead and cut this swing pipe so I can get it under this invisible fence line right here, because I don't want to tear that up. So I'm just going to cut it about right here. There's nothing to it. I just use my garden shears to cut it up. You'll find that if you're dealing with irrigation, it can be difficult to dig and get some of this stuff up, because irrigation installers typically put a bunch of rocks around the irrigation heads just to hold them in place over winter. So you can see the irrigation swing pipe just pops up just like that. And I may just be able to reconnect what I need down here with one of those connectors. So when you're installing drip and sprinkler heads, you just want to make sure you have the area dug down far enough that it's going to be really even for the sprinkler head to go. So obviously after this is installed, it will require a little bit of adjusting from the left to right area, which may differ based on what sprinkler head you have. So you need to take that into account and look at the directions for your specific sprinkler head. So I need about that much cut off. These swing pipe connectors can be a little more difficult to get in than the distribution tubing. I found it's best to kind of wiggle them back and forth best you can, and then get them connected as far in as you can. Sometimes you can spin them around, and that's really as good as you need to. It's a barbed connector, so it's not going anywhere. And that's it. That's all there is to it. So as I mentioned, you'll typically find lots of rocks around the installation of irrigation heads just to keep them upright in winter during the frost heave cycle. So you essentially just pile more of those rocks and material around the sprinkler head to keep it upright like that, and then just backfill in the areas that you need. So I'm going to keep these flags here for the fence installation people, because I don't want them hitting this sprinkler line that runs this way or this one that runs down this way. And there's none that run up this way. I guess this side of the house up here is irrigated from sprinkler lines that come across the front, which makes the most sense to me. So this is going to stay right here until I get this bed worked out. After the fence is installed, I'll work on that maybe next weekend. It's interesting, the stuff you find when you're digging in the ground. This looks like old landscape fabric or something that I just found here in the middle of the yard, so I'm going to throw that away. I'm just going to fill this back up, and I'll check in with you in just a minute. So for this area, it's essentially going to be the same way, but I am going to have to break out the swing pipe. So I may have some extra from previous projects, and I may not need to unwrap this, but I did pick it up just because I didn't want to not have it when I got into this project and I wasn't sure. So this one's going to be essentially the same, except we will need the extra swing pipe here instead of relying on what was already there. So I did find my extra swing pipe, so I'm just going to use what I have here instead of opening that one, and I could take that back if I don't need it, and I probably won't need it this season, but I like to keep that stuff on hand, so if I ever move anything in the future, I won't have an issue finding it, because this was the only one Menards had left in stock. So if they didn't have any, that may have caused an issue, because I may have had to order it or go to the sprinkler store specifically. So I did want to mention about this cap right here. There are alternatives you can put in that are valves that release the water into the soil that's left in the line. I went by the sprinkler store and asked the guy there if he had any recommendations if I should do that or just put a cap on it, and he said just a cap would be fine. So that's why I went with just a cap. But just so you know, there are options out there to put something a little different, and it's just like a valve that when pressure is lost in the system, it opens up and releases and drains the rest of the water in this line out. So the easiest way I've found to get the swing pipe off of this connector for the irrigation head is kind of just to take it off and cut it with your garden shears. You could also use a razor blade, just be very careful not to cut yourself, and cut through it a few times at an angle like this, and it'll eventually just come right off. And then you can slide the new one on. Just like that. You see now it's like a clean connector, so I'll reconnect it to the sprinkler head. One thing you may want to consider is blowing the dirty water out of these lines before you connect the sprinkler head and clog the sprinkler head. I'm not as concerned about that because no water's ran in these for a while and I haven't gotten any dirty water or debris in the line when I've been using and digging around it. Sprinkler head work is not the cleanest of jobs, so there will be some dirt involved. Now the fun part of just estimating how much line you need here. Let's say about right here. And I'm going to leave the sprinkler head sticking up just a little bit because this is going to be the edge of my bed anyway. In these new beds that I've been moving the sprinkler heads around in, I have put the sprinkler head inside the bed just on the very edge, and so that's what I'm going to continue doing here. And when doing any sprinkler project, you always end up with more soil than you took out of the hole. It's the weirdest thing. So I'm going to put back down this landscaping fabric, put the flags, cover up the soil, and I'll be right back to show you what it looks like done. All right, so I have the landscaping fabric back down. I'm actually probably today or this week before the fence people come gonna go and staple down the edge of it. I left it undone so that we could peel it back and I could stuff it back under the fence after it's installed. But I talked to the fence people this week when they called and scheduled the fence installation, and I asked them if they could just dig wherever they needed to put a post in the landscaping fabric, and they said yeah, that was fine. So that's what I'm going to do there. That way this will go ahead and be stapled down and I won't have to worry about cutting it and kind of sewing it back together, so to speak, in front of the fence where I would have to shimmy it under where a post is. So we're going to do that. I'm actually about to turn back on the sprinkler system and set up these heads where they'll spin correctly left or right. So I'm going to get that started and hopefully the camera doesn't get wet. We're going to see how far this turns. Okay, depending on your sprinkler head model, your irrigation company should have gave you a little screwdriver to adjust the left or right position. That won't be needed on this one that's right here, but that one up there is going to convert to like a 180 degrees to a 90 degrees, so I'll need to adjust the rightmost point. I'm going to adjust the left of the sprinkler head right here. I will probably put the camera way over there because it is currently shooting out water pretty bad. So I don't want to get my camera wet. So I actually may stick it in the shed and you can watch from the shed. So that one's lined up nice and perfectly. On mine, you can just twist it all the way to the left and keep twisting it and it will correct the leftmost point. This one right here is actually really crooked in the ground and I'll have to fix that. All right, I'm gonna turn it on one more time to make sure it's spraying in that perfect 90-degree angle I want. I do not want it hitting the tomatoes, so I'm gonna shorten it just a little bit, and that's perfect. So this job is done. So this is the part where the sprinkler job gets really dirty because you turn on the water and then you combine it with my clay soil. And it just gets really messy from there. So my only other sprinkler job for today, there is a sprinkler head that's like right here in the middle of the lawn. If you've seen my videos before, you know I've complained about my white roses getting wet from the sprinkler system. So probably in the spring, it may not be this year unless I just have time, I'm going to move that sprinkler head all the way down here because it even hits the patio right now, and that will prevent it. I can do it at a 180 instead of a 360, and it will prevent it from hitting those white roses, and maybe they'll look a little better so I don't decide to remove those and put up a very controversial video apparently when I'm removing David Austin roses. When I was removing the sprinkler or moving it up the other day, I did find the line and it's right beside the sprinkler. So what I'm going to do is just dig down to that line and cap it to cut off the sprinkler heads that are left in the system. So that's what I'm going to do right now. So I got this hole dug, and it's actually the perfect scenario simply because I mentioned there's the sprinkler head in the middle of the yard right there behind the camera. The pipe to that one runs right here. So this pipe runs to the back of the yard and feeds those also additional 2 sprinkler heads behind the moon gate. And what I recommend if you're having a sprinkler system installed is take pictures of the ground while it is torn up immediately after they do the installation, which is what I did. I went back to our pictures in May or June of 2017 and found the rough estimates of how these connected. So I know this one's on the same zone as the middle sprinkler head over here, and this one runs to the rest of those sprinkler heads and it terminates behind the moon gate. So what I'm going to do is just give me enough room to put a cap here, and I'm going to cut this line and then cap it. Clean the pipe up the best you can. Got my cap here, and I'm going to prime both the pipe itself and the cap. Get all the gunk off of it. Then you add your glue. Put on there, twist good. And then you need to let this sit probably 20-30 minutes before you turn the water back onto it. If you turn it on too early, it risks blowing the cap off and the glue not setting good. So I'm going to give it that time and then turn it on, make sure everything's sealed correctly, and then I'll fill the hole back up. So as I mentioned, I will give this 20-30 minutes to set up, and then I will test the sprinkler line to make sure there are no leaks, because although this is outside, you don't want to be wasting water and water dripping into your soil. I'm going to grab lunch and then should be good to go. We got the wall behind us almost completed. They left the little bit under the door because we're having this door replaced. If you're interested in a stone wall like this, I will put the guy's name who did ours below. He's local in the Dayton area, so if you need something like this, it did a really gorgeous job. I have been waiting for this to be completed for almost 2 years, and I just wasn't able to get around to it this fall because there was so much to be done. And this guy did a really great job in just 6 or so hours. He got this whole wall completed and most of this side except under the door. We didn't want to put under the door because we're afraid they would tear it up at the end of the month when they're removing the existing door. So after that's completed, he's going to come back and complete that 6 to 7 foot section, and it's just a small gap under the door. And then it'll be all done, and the patio will, for the most part, be complete. We are looking at adding a pergola onto this patio. If you are in the Dayton or Cincinnati area and you have had a pergola added to your patio just to block some sun, and you were really impressed with the people that did the work for you, please drop their contact information below. We've had one person come out and it was super expensive, and we're just looking for other alternatives. I know it's not the best time of year to be looking for that, but I want to get an idea as to cost, so maybe next spring that might be something we can consider. Because this patio is great, we love it, but during the summer it is almost excruciatingly hot to sit out here and impossible to sit on. I joke and call it my pizza oven because it's brick, it's stone brick, and it just feels like you're sitting on a pizza oven when the humidity is so high in the middle of July with no covering. We do have an umbrella, but because the sun sets that way, the sun just kind of beams in here after lunchtime, so it's kind of shady right now before lunch, but after lunchtime it's pretty much unbearable to sit back here. So if you were really impressed with a pergola that you got installed and the customer service you received, please drop that below. And if you're interested in getting brickwork done or siding rock work done, this is just connected to the side of the house. I will put his information in the description as I mentioned, and you can give him a call. He did excellent work, really quick, super nice guy, easy to talk to. So I'm gonna get and grab some lunch, everyone, and then I've got a few things to plant today. Take care, everyone. I hope you found this video helpful for those of you that have irrigation and are looking to move some things. It's also kind of just beneficial to have this background information if you're looking at doing drip irrigation and you want to connect it to your existing irrigation system. But stay tuned, more things to come. The season's not over yet. And remember, in a world full of hate, be a light. Take care, everyone. Bye.